Hello, duckies and dice fiends. Welcome in. It is time for the Table Talk Show. I am Kay. I am one of your hosts. This is David. David is on this side. This is David. He's our other host. Ilaria, thank you so much for the resub. That is so kind of you. Uh,
The only part
uh,
of me that is horse is the lower part
and we
because
don't see that here.
centaurs. Right.
Um, so find us here every Tuesday doing this. Normally we play Baldur's Gate on Thursdays. That's not happening this week because I am finishing up the Grand Labyrinth Heist, which is going to be Thursday over on Nerdsmith's channel. Friday, we are going to be playing Baldur's Gate 3, which I am very excited about. After that, our schedule is going to be turned just a little bit upside down because we are going to be doing Baldur's Gate streams on Wednesday nights. We are going to be doing Magnificent Pride on Thursdays. And then David is going to be streaming Another Crab's Treasure on Fridays because my Fridays are occupied for the month of June, which is also my birthday month. So I got a lot going on, y'all, and I'm real excited about it. But David, who the heck is you and what the heck is we doing here?
Hi. I am not actually a centaur. I know that may be hard to believe, but this is the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff. How to be a better person, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how not to write scathing things on the internet, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
And yes, have we ever seen David and a horse in the same room?
Right. It's fair.
Right? So disappointed. So we tried very hard to come up with another topic for today. But all that felt right was etiquette in the TTRPG space, especially after that truly horrible, which you've probably seen, and if you haven't, we're going to read out some of it. We can't read out all of it because all of it has vanished. There was an incredible post by a very angry GM who had clearly been pushed. We don't know the gender of this person, but we also know it's a him. Had been pushed to his limit by his D&D group. And we need to talk. We need to talk about etiquette. And oh gosh, David, did you save them all? Do you have the
saved them
entire...
all. I got the whole thing.
David has all 44 rules. And
the internet is forever.
The internet is forever, and David will not let such slights go unpunished. So, let's see. How do we want to start this off?
So, first off, and I think the most important rule is don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. So, Allie, for your edification, on the internet, on a subreddit, D&D horror stories, which I've had to stop myself from going to because some of that shit gets wild.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that shit makes me really uncomfortable. And it's like, it is there are too many things in our lives that reminds us constantly that people are fundamentally awful. And it's not fair to say that people are fundamentally awful. It's that we live in an age where we will make more noise about what is bad than what is good. And day to day, our entire lives are filled with noise, whether it is social media or news, or even like the act of trying to disconnect and escape from it is acknowledging and recognizing that noise. And so, whether it's am I the asshole, or whether it is petty revenge, or people bitching about their bosses, or people going, oh man, my husband punched me in the face and then fed our children magic mushrooms, but I complained about him leaving a dirty dish in the sink. Am I a bad person? It's like, Come on, meow. Come on, meow. So there are multiple D&D subreddits um, where there is an element of the sort of like bitching that goes on with people's bad behavior, both with someone very arrogantly saying, "Listen, I set his house on fire, but I caught him on the phone with a girl, and I mean, like, yeah, the girl was his mom, but really he was talking to her too long, and the house had to get burned down." Obviously, I am in the right. So like, you have like that side of things, and then the other side of like, he burned my house down because I burnt the dinner, and it's like, but we have like $500 in the bank. We could just order delivery. It's fine. Maybe the house didn't have to burn down, but I feel like a bad person about this. And it's like, okay, both sides of this, both of y'all need to chill the fuck out. And in this, on D&D Horror Stories, there is a now semi-famous post that went up, where a DM laid out, where a player was like, my DM laid out 44 rules after a long hiatus. And it's basically this guy being an absolute dickbag to his players.
Let's read just a little. We can explain it. I'm going to read just a little bit. So the post says, my DM just posted this after a hiatus. Enjoy. I'll put this shit out now that's going to change before anyone goes through with anything, : and then is a numbered list of 44 things. I'm timing turns. I don't give a fuck if it's unfair in your opinion because your spells are hard or you don't know what square to move to. You get 1 minute to know all the actions you want to take, or I skip your turn. 2, if you want harder fights, bring a second character sheet and expect to twiddle your thumbs when you die. I'm not going to baby anyone. 3, if you call my rolls unfair, I'll get up and go home. And if you got to ride with me, you can find your own way back and suck it up. 4, I'm going to take your character's loot away as regularly as you want it given out. Rule 3 will apply here. And again, if you don't act out your persuasion or intimidation or any other social checks, you fail before you even roll. You fail immediately because you aren't even trying to make the game lame for everyone else. You aren't even trying, and you're making the game lame for everyone else. If you moved 1 square in combat, there's no takebacks. There was a great, every snide comment you make about an NPC will be remembered and paid back in triplicate. You all seem to believe there is little consequence. Like,
and also like guidance, divination spells, owls, and whatever spells I decide are too fucking stupid are banned outright. No more fucking guidance.
Look, guidance has saved our ass in Baldur's Gate so many times.
Right.
Like just give me that. It's a +4 at most. Just chill. Now, there's some things in this list that are real and fair, right? Number 15, if you get too stoned or drunk to play, I will go home without any warning. Your warning is here. So for you to come up with that, that's understandable, right? Understand, you can be mad about that. But then, like, just a little bit above it, if you're late with no good reason, I'm going to have your character's hit points for the entire session. There's a whole thing too about I will decide, I don't remember where it is, but there's one of them, like, if you don't show up for no good reason, and that will be determined by me and me alone, if no one else has the guts to say shit for fear of upsetting one another, the first time you'll find yourself losing either a whole level or up to 3 major items of your own. The second time you do it in a row, you'll be removed from the chat and the group, full stop. I have no fucking time for people who do not show up. Again, a certain amount of that is understandable, but not to this level.
And what grinds my gears most about this list is 2 things. One, buried deep in these motherfuckers is a kernel of like sensibility.
Mm.
Like there's one rule. Oh yeah, this one's perfect. If you don't bring dice, borrow some. Like, what? Why does this need to be a rule? What
Yeah.
happened? What happened
Yeah.
to you where this perfectly reasonable thing needs to be written down and handed to a player? Or like, if you break literally anything, you could buy the replacement that day or not attend till you do. What is happening? What
Mm-hmm.
is happening in this man's house, apartment, shanty, cardboard box under an overpass? That people are breaking stuff and being like, oops, and
Yeah.
then like, go fuck yourself? Like what?
I feel like that's tied in with the if you get too stoned or drunk to play.
And that too, it's like there's so many things in here that are like reasonable complaints. And yeah, so like one, things that are just outright good advice, reasonable things you could ask. I'm mad that it's in this list. The other thing that I'm mad that's in this list is that underneath all the toxicity, there are different things where he has a point. Like he said, like the drunk or high thing, because I've played with people who've done bong rips at the table. It's fine. They're not incoherent after.
Yeah. I will not call out the person, but I have played a game with an individual who, before every single game, performing, not a home game, a performing game, takes a great big hit because that is how they deal with their nerves. They put on a better performance when they're like, "Ooh." But I've also been at tables with drunk people.
Right.
And not the fun drunk people.
And I've watched streams where, oh man, there was one thing. So y'all, if I have Twitch on, it is often on mute because I have other sound things going on. I'm in a video game and I got to hear footsteps behind me. I'm on Discord but with a buddy telling me that I need to stop running into the rooms and getting everyone killed, which will not happen. That is still going to happen. And he will just continue yelling about it from now until the end of time. But it's bad when on mute, over the course of 2 hours that I have a game on mute, I can watch somebody slurring their words. Like I can see that not only are they slurring their words, but they're getting drunker as the game goes on.
Yep.
And are just propped up with like toothpicks by the end of the game. That's bad.
I stepped into a game and it was a shorter game, and the GM's like, okay, like here's the basic channel rules. And he's like, you can drink, but you can't get drunk. Right? You can't get drunk. You can't drink to the point where you are drunk and it's visibly showing in session. Also, you can't show up pre-drunk. I have to clarify that, sadly, because someone thought they found a loophole.
Right. And and like other things like
Hey, crew.
like being late, Meowdy. There's being late and then there's being late. Because people of a certain variety that is often associated with products made from beans in Africa. Or occasionally like a smidge, like a little late. But a very good friend of mine, a pianist, is the skinniest person I have ever met. Probably 135 pounds, soaking wet, at like a whopping like 5'9". Briefly, he and I and a bunch of other our friends played, and not once did he show up on time to our games. Not once. And when I say like not on time, I don't mean within 5 minutes. I don't mean within 15 minutes. I mean a solid half an hour late each time. Now, we all knew him. We all knew what was up. We all had planned to spend 6 or 7 hours at this person's house. So when he shows up a half an hour late, it's not a problem. However, we were all at times in our lives when we could just spend a Saturday afternoon kicking it with the fellas. And there are a lot of people where they don't have that kind of time. There are a lot of people where their neurodivergence, where their upbringing like prevents them from like looking past people showing up egregiously late. And there are people who like really look forward to like maximizing the time they have playing the game. And when you cut a half an hour out of it, or when you cut 45 minutes, or when you say an hour after it was supposed to start, oh man, I'm not going to make it. Well, then we're just going to pull up on your front doorstep and demand you come out here and pick up the boxing gloves that are waiting for you.
And let me be clear, it's not just showing up half an hour late. The BS before the game starts when
then.
everyone gets there. So again, I am the person who's like, we're here to tell a story. Let's get to it. Like, yes, I like hanging out with my friends, but I'm also like, this is why I'm like, I really like stream games over home games, because home games end up being like an hour of game and 2 to 3 hours of friends hanging out and BSing. And I enjoyed that, but that's not what I'm here to do.
Right. And that also circles into like the timing of turns. So multiple things to say about this. One, there are times when if you pull out a timer and press the button on that motherfucker, the whole party panics. Everybody's like, oh my God, we gotta figure it out. And also like I've both been at tables and I've GM'd games where the players just take entirely too long to figure, and it's like, listen, I understand that you're all bottoms, but one of you needs to make a decision. And you'll see that in some of the games that I've played on stream, that my character will just go and do a thing, and then everybody will panic. And part of why I do that is because I'm like, it's been 17 minutes for this before we decide to go in here and talk to this person. Like I'm just gonna go and set something on fire. Like something will happen. I am Chekhov's gun, okay? I am going to go off.
And turns, it is absolutely fair. If you are a barbarian and you are taking, if you're checked out at the table and your melee class is like, wait, it's my turn. And you take 10 minutes to figure out what you're going to do when, let's be honest, this isn't true of every barbarian, but most barbarians are press the hit button, right?
Yeah, most barbarians got two options, bunk and rage bunk. That's it. Right. That's what you got.
That said, it is definitely challenging for spellcasters, especially if your spell requires you to use things in the space. You know, if you're using a catapult, you do have to ask questions and make sure there is something there that you can pick up and catapult. But either way, there has definitely been moments where I'm in a game, even as a melee class, where it's like, okay, I have my plan turned, I am ready. And the person who goes before me does a thing that changes everything. And it is not fair to tell that person who has done their strategy, was doing the strategy between turns, right? I'm paying attention. I know what's happening on the board. I'm going to go do X. Oh, crap. Everything has changed. Hold on. I might need another couple moments because it is more important to me for combat to be interesting than quick. If combat is taking a long time because everyone is checked out and no one's paying attention, that's different than combat is taking a long time because we are strategizing or we are role-playing and being sassy in between turns and having fun with it. Like, that is content I am here for. So yeah, for sure, as a caster, things change before your turn. The whole exactly, everything changes. So before we go too deep down this rabbit hole.
Okay, I got stuff to say about cast. As someone who plays a lot of martial classes, I got something to say about. And as someone who DMs a lot of casters, I got things to say about casters. Continue. If
we're doing our own version of the 44 rules, right? And this is the critical thing here. And I would have said this would be rules 1, 2, and 3. But David said rule number 1 is don't be a dick. So this has to be rules 2, 3, and 4. Communicate, communicate, communicate. How many of these things on this list Like, maybe not the, I think these spells are bullshit, so they're gone, right? Those aren't fixed with communication, probably. Probably. But how many of these things are fixed just by saying, hey, I'm having trouble with how you run combat? Or, hey, I'm going to be late. Or, hey, I'm not picking up. Like, I know you're telling us something to go find a side quest. I can't figure it out.
And a lot of that communication clears up a lot of like conflicts between like sentiments this person has, because he's both been like, I don't care if you're complaining that combat is too easy. Like no, it's like, if you think combat is too easy, then I will make it hard, bring a new character. Also, what's it called? You know, if you want harder fights, then I will make them harder. But also, like, don't complain that the fights are too easy. And it's just like, how are you getting all these missed signals from your players? And it's like, if you just, because like I've had an entire D&D group that I was running fall apart because one player wasn't communicating. Like, I've had the whole thing come to a screeching halt because one player, I was hearing things secondhand. They weren't talking to me directly. I would ask them questions directly, and then they wouldn't give me answers. And then when they did give me answers, I would later hear from another player that what they actually meant was this. And I'm just like, excuse me? Like you could just, and I understand that I'm very like loud and opinionated, but I don't like to think that I am the sort of person that is difficult to talk to. Like, people can come talk to me and I'm like, okay. And I'm also quick, and I'm also quick to pivot, where it's just like, if you don't like blank, then we're doing something different. The end. Full stop. And it's like, no, you don't have to tell me why. You don't have to explain to me why you got like a problem with elves. Me too. Again, front lawn, boxing gloves. But yeah, like, you don't have to, like, I'm not gonna give you a hard time because you're not enjoying something and you came to talk to me about it. And conversely, if there's something going on that I need to talk to you about, you go hear from me. You go hear from me immediately. And I'm not gonna be like, stop being a stupid bitch. I'm gonna talk to you like you're a human being.
And that, again, Rule 38. If you treat me poorly in any way, shape, or form during or after or before a game, due to something that happened in the game, you're out. If you cannot separate the game from reality, I think you're a fucking moron and have little time to deal with that strategy. So, like...
Yeah, it's like you're almost there and then you take this right turn and quit it.
Like, yes, you should be able to separate in character, out of character. And David knows, Candace knows, I know Matt knows, right? Most people in this chat know. I live for character bleed. I live for that character being loud and alive and feeling things and keeping me up after the session, right? I live for adrenaline or feeling angry about what happened. And I can 100% separate it from David didn't do this. Adam didn't do this, right? This is the world of the game, and the GM. I also just, as we've discussed, I'm from the Hurt Me Daddy school of TTRPGs, so I like it when something goes bad, because then I can be like, ah. But again, if you treat me poorly, I think you are a fucking moron. Like, okay, my dude, you... Right, exactly. What sort of group has this? Now, again, how much of this guy's attitude has gone into the group and then been reflected back to him is also the question. And then again, y'all, 39, you will submit your spell list daily in-game. If you do not give me a spell list each in-game day, you will not be allowed to cast a single spell or cantrip in combat. I do not trust you guys not to use that against me. Having players blindside you and be very clever is one of the greatest joys as a GM. At least I hope it is, because I do it to all my GMs. So sorry, Matt.
It's
I'm
a good
so
time.
sorry, Matt. Hey, how you doing, Kato?
And it's so like speaking of casters and their spells and what. So like his approach bad. With more than once, I've run a game and I'm like, okay, listen, all the like core spell casting classes, wizard, sorcerer, warlock, those are out. No one's playing one of those because I know that like the 3 or 4 people I'm playing with are all the sort of people who would find the tedium, like the tedious aspects of being a spellcaster, really like something not worth keeping track of. And it's like, my guy, I'm not gonna let you cast 4 level 3 spells and you're level 2.
Yeah.
Like where are these coming from? And and 99% of the time I don't do that. And again, I say to those players, and I'm like, listen, if you really want to play spellcaster, then we could talk about it, and then you'll play a spellcaster. But I am going to have like an expectation that you, I don't know, keep track of your spells. And Kay and I are not the sort of people where we're like, okay, you have 1,000 ball bearings, and you poured out how much did you say you poured out? Half the bag? How many is half? You got to count every last one of them. Oh, that's 578 ball bearings that you poured onto the floor. Yeah, so you're gonna spend a short rest counting the rest to make sure that you have like, if you're an archer, you have arrows. If you're an artificer, you have like gunpowder. Like if you're a wizard or sorcerer or warlock, you have spellcasting components up to a certain point. Like, I'm not gonna say that you have like 2,000 gold worth of diamonds just like chilling in your bag, in your spellcasting bag. But like all your cantrips, all your level 1 spells, all your level 2 spells, you got that stuff. Like, part of your long rest is you go into town and you get that stuff. So and especially me, not gonna be sticklers about that stuff. But too many casters, I go, so how many spell slots do you have left? And they look at me like I just asked them their blood type. They look at me like I just asked their social security number. They look at me like I asked their sun, moon, and rising on a first date. Like their mother's maiden name, the street they grew up on, and their first pet's name. Like I'm just gonna steal their whole identity.
They look at you like you leaned in on a first date and said, "So do you own a fursuit?"
Right.
And look, there's a lot. Now, again, David and I, we don't care. You're gonna have arrows unless you go out and are like, I'm just unless you're being obnoxious with it, right? We're not gonna care, right? You're adventurers. But spell slots unbalance the game, right? I'm not gonna restrict how many arrows you can shoot. I'm not gonna restrict how many cantrips you could cast, but your leveled spell slots you have to keep track of. And again, so much of this, communication. Because this one, number 27, again, this is a giant red flag of why we should not be at this table. Saying anything to me about other players not liking me doing X or Y without them saying it directly to me will result in me kicking you out of the group. Don't use someone else to push your own agenda. My siblings and dice. So, Kato, there was a player, someone posted on D&D Nightmares on subreddit, it's been deleted now, but David saved screenshots. A very angry GM posted the 44 rules of D&D, and they're bad. And he's very angry. And again,
and a tiny sliver of that anger is justified, but the rest of it is him being a dick bag.
And again, David and I were in a game where 44, yes, David and I were in a game where the GM allowed another player to say some stuff that was not okay. And David and I are professionals, so we finished that session. I turned off my computer and was angry, right? We finished the game. I'm like, cool, game over. End call, left. David was kind enough to reach out to the GM on my behalf and be like, that's not cool. And the GM blew David off and then came to me the next day and was like, I might have to deal with blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm never playing with him again. It is so important that you advocate. If you are an ally, it is so important that you advocate. And if you as a GM cannot handle or only see someone coming to you with concerns on behalf of someone else as pushing their own agenda, no, advocate for your friends. Advocate for yourself, advocate for your friends. Not everyone is comfortable advocating for themselves at the moment, right? I was too angry to be able to have that discussion. I needed David to do it. Well, I didn't need David to do it, but David wonderfully did it on my behalf in a much more even tone than I would have been able to put off.
I should have been louder, man. I was being polite, and
You were.
That is not always the best approach.
You were. And again, it at least spurred him so that he came to me with it, and I didn't have to go, hey, so I have a problem, right?
And it's also important to speak up because, and like, this is one of the conversations in allyship. Yeah, we're only doing like parts of Electrum. So like that is 0.000185 Electrum for that mug of beer. No. And it's so we talk about allyship and we talk about like showing up for other people. And sure, it's important that you show up for people who are a part of the alphabet family. It's important to show up for people of other genders and other races of you, but also show up for your friends. Because if I see somebody being treated poorly, I'm going to open my goddamn mouth. And one of the big complaints that people have about people in marginalized groups have about the people who aren't marginalized is they wait for the marginalized person to say so. And sometimes you feel like you're standing on an island. Like if I'm at a table with all white people and one person is doing something racist, I'm going to be like, yo, that person over there, I'm going to get in that ass. But not everybody is not as willing to engage in conflict. And both in general, because there's some people who just don't like conflict for very good reasons. And then there are also people who are burnt out. Like this may come as a surprise to many people, but I get burnt out talking about race, and I get burnt out talking about politics, and I get burnt out like advocating for like gender identity and like, you know, like all of the marginalized groups. And so in that moment, you may not necessarily have the spare spoon to go at that person. And when you feel like it's like 6 of them and 1 of you, it's going to be a lot harder to do it and say the thing if someone else has already spoken up. And now it's 5 of them and 2 of you.
And thank you for the follow, Oblivion's Price. But yes, so again, there is some obviously there's issues with this group, right? And I have no doubt that some of it is the players. Some of it's definitely the GM, and I'm entirely sure that it is some of it the players, the GM reflecting some stuff back to the players, and the players reflecting some stuff back to the GM. Like this is toxic.
Maybe that entire table
This is
should slide to
toxic.
the ocean.
Right.
Is all I'm
This
saying.
is clearly a toxic space, and communication would help a whole lot with that. But are we using the letters can Fred ratio, the LOTR alphabet? Super cute. But taking a step back from going through these points, because we could go through all 44.
Yeah,
And
I could spend the next 2 hours talking about all 44 of these points and not get to 44.
but hey, DC, welcome in.
How was show and tell earlier?
But we wanted to talk just a little bit about, like, what is good etiquette in a TTRPG? Because especially if you are newer to the space, be it a home game, be it a streamed game, like, what should you do? What should you not do? What is the expected behavior?
So Mimics and Misfits said, I'm waiting for David's hot take. And here is my hottest take. My hottest take. Don't show up stankin'. Don't do it. And I mean home game. I mean convention. I mean Zoom game. I mean streamed game. Because if it looks like I could smell you through the screen, my guy, that's gonna distract. And I'm not trying to call a particular streamer, except everybody knows I'm calling out a particular streamer. I don't want to hear anything a man has to say when he got cockroaches on him with the camera on. When the roaches are whispering in his ear. When he's like, listen, I really want to love the game, and then the cockroach is like, but the game is trash. You can't love the game. He's like, listen, I really want to, the game, and the cockroaches are screaming in his ear. No, whatever you have to say is now invalid. You could have a PhD in whatever the fuck you're talking about. You could be the authority. You could write the book about it. But if you are so nasty that them things is on you, midstream, they're looking into the camera and I'm looking back. No, I can't hear anything you're saying because all I hear is cockroach.
Tato says, I have watched a player at an MTG tournament be disqualified in round 3 for too many smell complaints. This was a 400+ player tournament. I think in D&D etiquette, you're supposed to kneel before royalty, but also, like, fuck the monarchy.
Right. So, like, and for those of us who bathe regularly, it sounds like a no-brainer. But apparently, this man put no-brainer things into the 44 rules, so we get to put, don't show up stankin'. And if you're like, man, it's been a couple of days, but I sniffed myself, but I'm good. You're not good, my guy. Get in the shower. Get in the shower. Because
purchase deodorant. Just
and get the stuff that gives you cancer.
Enough gaming convention.
Get the aluminum, full cancer, industrial strength. I know because I sweat. I was a teenager boy. I know what stankin' is like. I played sports. Okay.
Can we please move on to something else, David? I am done talking about this.
But look, I'm very upset about it. I'm very, very, very angry about it, and I absolutely want to reinforce the. Yeah, but yes, we can move on. Not rule 1, but for etiquette's sake.
Yes. So, David, you are mostly a GM. What's some of the best player etiquette when folks just show up?
Bring me something to eat. No, So there's the topic. So I say bring me something to eat as a joke, but also I am relentlessly broke, and so food that I don't have to buy is really nice. And also, like we've talked about on screen, or we talked about on stream before, is circling back to that interview with the D20 people, where it's like I can focus on being a wood nymph a lot easier if I know at 5 p.m. the pizza's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and more than once I have sat at a table and everybody's, gearing up and getting ready, and then that first crunch of chip hits, and then everyone at the table, including me, all realize that we're hungry. All realize that we had breakfast at 8 a.m. and it's now 2 p.m. and we're trying to play this game, and it's really, and not in a bad way, but it's really distracting when you're like, oh man, we're hungry. Let's focus on like getting some food down, or even worse, we're hungry and let's try to ignore it and then like play the game. It's like, no, you're not supposed to be miserable playing D&D.
We're trying
So,
to ignore it while also planning where and how to get food, while also trying to run a combat.
and so I'd say like the number one thing is to take care of yourself first. Like make sure you are prepared to play. Like have your water, have your grapes if you're dauntless. Um, have your just like I know I take a fistful of medication before I get on camera every time we do this. There's and like if you closely examine our streams, you'll see times where I've forgotten to take a thing, and like live on camera, I'm just like shaking a bottle into my face, and pills cascade out like they're gummy bears. Then they're chomping noises, and then Gilmore looks at me in judgment, much like he is now. Um, but like number one thing, take care of yourself, because and that includes like canceling if you're not feeling well. Because I don't want people there who don't want to be there. Two, I don't want you to be miserable. I want you as a person to feel great first, and then game second. And I've told people in my home games, I'm like, listen, the first boss of D&D is scheduling, but also make this the lowest priority thing that you do. Like like it's Mother's Day, we're not playing. Like, it's Veterans Day and everyone in your family is going to the cemetery, we're not playing. Like, oh, it's so and so's birthday this weekend. Like go to that. Go do things, and also take care of yourself. And saying I don't have the spoons for this today is a perfectly good reason to cancel. Um, as long as you're being like genuine about it. Like if you don't like us and you don't want to hang around us, then like you don't
Yeah,
have to be
let
here
us
and
know.
you don't have to be part of the group. Don't just say it for the okey doke. But yeah, the
And
number one
also
thing,
cancel as early as possible.
right?
It's not always possible, right? Stuff happens, toilets explode, cats have to go to the vet, right?
I
Emergencies go down.
I had someone get into a car accident on the way. They're like, I'm not gonna make it. And I'm like, you don't have to tell me why, but why? They're like, oh no, I had a head-to-head collision because someone swerved across the double yellow line. And I'm like, listen, if you're gonna keep coming up with these flimsy ass excuses to not be here, but no, like, and like saying I don't feel good is a good enough reason, but also like I'm in the car on the way and then I happened to strike a camel with my car is a more than good enough reason. Um, and I've had games that have been paused for weeks or months because of people's life stuff, and then it picks up again, or it doesn't. But like, yeah. So like the first thing as a GM, make sure you take care of yourself first. Oh, I was in court at 1 and ran D&D at 7. Do not recommend. Okay, so I have multiple friends that have either just had or have upcoming court dates for things. Nothing like illegal. It's like jury duty, and then there's like a civil case thing that they have a complaint about, et cetera, et cetera. Every time I've been to court, every single time I have been to court, if I drive by a courthouse, then before the end of that day, I need alcohol in me. And every time I've had to set foot in that motherfucker, nothing else happens that day. Like if I show up for jury duty at 8 a.m. and at 9:01 they let me out, and you try to ask me to do something at 5 p.m., I'm gonna be drunk. Like I am not that day is over. So my advice, because you come here for all of my terrible advice, is if you have court that day, then you don't got anything else that day.
Yeah, agree. Oblivion's Prices, see, that's interesting because I do ask my players to make the game a priority. Like, obviously, things come up. But I don't want you to hang out with, came up. Like, obviously, things come up. I don't want you to not hang out with your mom for her birthday. But if you're going to play my game, ... commit to it. Which is also fair, which is a little bit of, obviously, don't make this the last priority in that, like, oh yeah, I decided I'm going to go grocery shopping today during our session instead of after. It also depends on your home game too, because I know people who could throw that stuff together. They're like, we can't play Sunday, we're getting together Wednesday, and everyone's like, yep, cool.
Who has free time like that?
People who meet in person, strangely. Like, I feel like people who meet in person somehow, I don't know.
This is wild to me. Maybe that's what being 19 is all. Anyway, I am not here to disparage the young, but and so part of why I say that with my players is because everybody I play with is gung-ho. Every person I play with is so dedicated not only to playing the game, but to also not disappointing other people. They're all really focused, really interested, and really considerate of others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to tell them, I'm like, hey, you as a person matter too. Like, if they got bit by 4 zombies and a vampire and like had one like on the cheek, they wouldn't hide the zombie bite, but they would show up at the table and they're like, listen, I may only have like an hour and a half because I may start turning in the 90-minute mark. But it's like, maybe go lay down, man. Maybe a little penicillin. Maybe rub some tussin on it. Like, maybe you don't have to be right here. And they're like, no. Like, yeah, my arm's falling off, but we're gonna play.
And it's also like, I've definitely been at tables with people who are like, I am ill and I can play today, but I don't want to, and it's not going to be a good performance. And it's like, yeah, cool. We're going to kill it, right? I've also played with people who are like, I am ill and this game is the only thing that has gotten me through this week. So I apologize if I am lower energy or I have to ask a question twice, but I am desperate to play. Please don't tell me I can't play.
And so it's an element of like reading the room and like knowing your players and like being familiar with people. And like Kay said, like very true story. I had somebody who was like visibly ill. And they messaged me and they said, listen, if I turn my camera off, it's because I'm puking in the puke bucket. But I'm like, bruh, you don't got it. And he's like, you will take this away from me only by prying it from my cold, dead hands. I'm like, all right, we're going then. And he didn't need to use the puke bucket. He actually felt much better like the next day. And it was fine. But so like, yeah, So like I said, I've said to players, I'm like, listen, real life is a thing. Prioritize your real life. Um, and I also acknowledge that I can't say that to every group of players I ever come across. There are some people where I'm gonna be like, listen, I watched you just take your third bong rip, and I know what you're smoking on. Maybe ease up off of that, because you are going to be 27% flower. You're going to be a plant person very shortly. And you can play a plant person, but you can't be a plant person. What about you? Because you, if you have not GM'd more than me, you are reaching the point. Because like I'm thinking about it, and I've got like 150, 200 sessions.
I don't think I'm that far.
You've done a fair bit, but you are an experienced GM, an experienced professional GM. Hire K, give K money. No, don't hire K. One, hire K, but two, give K money, just because. Put it in an envelope.
Give David money. David needs money,
but don't we all? I'm just saying, not like a stripper, but like throw money at K. So if there are like
Matt, you've already done that. You're good.
If a whole circle of people got fake money, like got those stacks of fake money, and then showed up to a con, and then we're just like doing the like making it rain with the fake money at K randomly at a con, K would probably find me and kill me. So don't do that, because K's gonna be like, David arranged this. Mm-hmm. All of you are culpable, but the one who's really gonna pay.
Yes, David does deserve money for the rants. Yeah. Obviously, for me, again, communicate. If you can't make it, that's fine. Just tell me as early as possible. Especially if we're playing a late in the evening game. Because if Kay drinks coffee at 3 p.m. so that they can be awake at midnight to put on a good show, and then at 3:30 you say, by the way, can't make it today, or at 5 o'clock you say, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, right? Now, if something comes up, obviously, I understand, but yes. Be present at the table, and that can look very different for different people. A lot of people who are, on the ADHD, ADD spectrum, they might not look like they're paying attention, but they are, right? I'm not asking for eye contact. I'm not asking for smiles. I'm not asking for, but pay attention, right? We were talking earlier about you get 1 minute for your move, even if the entire board changes, right? I don't care if you, it's not that I don't care. It's not, if everything that you planned to do is suddenly turned upside down and removed from you because of the action of another player or a layer action or the big bad or whatever, like, I want you to have that time. But again, if you were at the table and it wasn't your turn, so you haven't paid any attention, you've been on your phone or you've just been zoned out, and it gets to be your turn in combat and you're like, wait, what? Hold on. How did what? Huh? What? That's rough. And Gilmore, why? He's making it very, very difficult to he's making it very difficult to focus. And as a player, communicate what you want for your character, or out of plots, or if you're like not connecting with the game or something, let me know, because my goal is to make sure you have a good time. And if I don't know, again, different people, we got a tail to camera situation. If you're on the ADHD spectrum and you look completely zoned out, and I ask you, are you having fun? Do you need something? You're like, oh no, I was really focused. It's like, cool, I believe you. Great. if I ask you, are you having fun? And you're like, yeah. And then you're like, I think I'm going to drop out. This isn't really clicking. It's like, I asked.
Right. You're sending me mixed messages.
Yeah.
And many years ago, I took a class on, or it was like a multi-day seminar on nonviolent communication. And if you actually sit down and read the nonviolent communication book, it is a bunch of really good points, obscured and buried in a little bit of woo-woo. But the people who were putting on the thing, we were all sitting on the floor, and there was like a low table. It was so fucking woo. But the first thing they did was they opened up a package of pipe cleaners and dumped it on the table. And they're like, grab the pipe cleaners. Like everyone go get pipe cleaners. This is not optional. And so you're like, you go grab like 5. And they're like, listen, tinker with these motherfuckers. Play with these things while we do this code. Because on average, you will listen better if your hands are missing. And there are neurodivergents, and they didn't say neurodivergent, but they're like people with these things whereby they literally can't hear you. If they're like, my hands aren't doing a thing, my hands.
Yeah. They're like, what was the great post on Twitter about like people who are not neurodivergent trying to give me advice? They're like, oh, just take everything off your desk so you can't play with anything. Joke's on you, I have hands.
Right. And like there are people where I had never seen them not fidget before, and they were not fidgeting during it. And while I am not that flavor of neurodivergent, there are things like, it's not that I can't keep eye contact, it's that I stop using brain power on my eyes when I'm thinking about a thing and listening to a thing. And it's like, y'all will see me on stream just be like, because I'm like focused on listening and thinking about a thing at the same time. I'm like, I'm a man, I can't multitask. So like those two things already are overloading me. And you expect me to like look in a direction too? Absolutely not. And so so like I encourage all my players, get a thing to like dicker. And I've heard like all sorts of like scrapes and bangs and clangs and shit in people's microphones because they're dickering with stuff on their desk. And I'm like, they're having a good time. And
again, the number of, I haven't done it, but I have been in spaces where someone was clearly like, everyone's doing their role play thing or in combat, and someone is down doing this, and they've been given some sass, and it turns out they were drawing the scene because they're an artist, and it was like they were so into it that they were like drawing it. Yeah.
And so like, and again, the communication is important because like there are times where, because of like my own mental health, I've had trouble focusing. And I've sat down with a meeting with Kay and I'm like, listen, brain no working properly. Focus is going to be tough. And then Kay has watched me like get out of focus for a time and then get back in focus for a time, sometimes a much shorter time, and then get back out of focus. And because I was like, hey, leading into this, and it's one thing that people don't talk about is that communication requires self-awareness. And so you have to pay attention to yourself. You have to gain an understanding of how you operate, of how your brain works, of how your body feels. Because I think everybody here has had the moment of they're like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna go. And then you go to do it, and then your body was like, buddy, I've been telling you can't focus. I've been telling you for like hours now. And then you're like, oh, click. No, it's not working. And then you end up like one of those like sad turned off robots. You're just like, and so
yeah. I also, Jason, got in trouble for doodling in school, and I'm like, but I can't not pay attention. Like I can't I need.
So like, have that self-awareness, do the work to have that self-awareness, and then bring that with you and communicate that to your um to the people that you're playing with. Because like I said earlier, I've had people tell me, or Kay has had people say, oh, I'm having a good time, and then you later find out they're not. And like, sometimes it's people being conflict avoidant, sometimes it's people be sometimes people lying to your fucking face. Ooh. But other times it's simply just like a lack of self-awareness, where like they didn't really think about it and they didn't really process it, and then that thinking and processing comes up later.
So, let's switch gears a little bit. What's good etiquette from a DM?
I'm glad you brought this up. One, eat the food that they bring you.
The finger came out.
Yeah. Eat the food that they bring you. Don't be an ungrateful little shit. No. So one of the things that dude had in his list is, I don't give two fucks what Reddit said about X or Y ruling, and I actually give less of a fuck about what your friends D&D group did. And it's important to recognize that, though, yeah, rule with an iron fist inside a velvet glove. Wait, that's not. Listen, y'all. Put me in charge. Everyone will be happy. No one will be happy with how I get it done. Not one of you, but everyone will be happy. I guarantee it. Or else, no. But when you are put in the role of GM, when you are elected GM, by everyone's participation, while it is true that the last ruling comes down to you, it's also true that from point A to point B is a discussion, is a collaboration. We talk about collaborative storytelling, and the rules of the game, just like society's laws, just like morality, are essentially all things that we agree on. And so when you're doing a thing and somebody's like, well, actually, what the book said, then you could say, hey, listen, we take the book in this, and fuck it out of here. But if you do that too much, that means the game has no guardrails, and then anything goes, and then why do the dice even matter? And conversely, if you go, well, you can't do that because the rule says blah blah blah, there are sensible times to do that and nonsensical times to do that. Like the whole Matt Mercer fucking potion rule. It doesn't take 6 seconds to. And the argument that was made to me is that healing potions are magic items, and it takes 6 seconds for them things to spin up.
Thank you, Logar.
However, and also, and that's an argument that can be had. But also, it's not fun when you're level 3 and you only get one action per round. Or even when you get like multiple attack and you can either do 2 attacks or drink a potion. Like just let it be a bonus action. Especially since the people who need potions most don't use their bonus actions that much. And it is important to take in the perspectives of your players, and like think about all the things that Kay and I do that we learned from other GMs and learned from other players, and we learned from stories people told and ideas that we picked up online somewhere. And it's like, me personally, I do care about what Reddit has to say about a ruling, if for no other reason to tell them that they are wrong. I do care about what is happening in other people's games, because that shit is interesting and fun. Um,
And it gives you stuff to steal.
right. But also recognize that if people are making these comparisons in criticism of how you are GMing, then that is a larger conversation that you need to enter into. And so, in terms of like GM etiquette, one, always keep in mind that the rules are a dialogue, a living, breathing dialogue between you and the players. Especially when you do things like K and I do, where I don't think there's any game we've played where we didn't build some custom thing, like some custom mechanic, whether it be like a chase thing or like a new fighting style, or like a way to use artisan tools, or just
Or a
all
stress
sorts,
mechanic.
or or a stress mechanic, or like how wild magic is used, etc., etc. Um, all of those are custom things that we've built out because we want the players to have a certain experience, or because the players came to us and said, hey, we're doing this, and this. How do we make this work in this system? And we go and we look and we're like, well, there's no way to implement this, but we're not going to let that stop us. We're going to do it. And so it's important as a GM that you listen to your players and you really take in what they're doing and what they're trying to do.
For me, and this is especially true for, it can be true for home games, but it's especially important for streamed games, especially with streamed games with people you don't know very well. I think it's really important to know, for a DM to tell people like upfront what is expected of them, right? Like, one of the things that we're building out with our pre-production docs is like, what are you going to cover in the session 0? One of the things I want to make sure we cover in every session 0 is how many players are missing before we cancel the session.
Yeah.
Because that's important to know, especially if it's a limited series or you're on a time crunch, someone's moving away, etc. Knowing, okay, one person is called out sick. They're not the focus of this episode, so we're going to keep playing with down one player. Oh, a second person called out. Now we're going to cancel, right? That is really important to me. But I also, and I'm fairly certain this is just my anxiety brain, so you all are just going to have to deal with that. But I get really, really anxious after a game with people that I don't know or don't know well that was fine. And you all know this game. It wasn't a bad game. It was just fine. And then you finish that session and the GM goes, okay, now we're going to do Stars and Wishes or Roses and Thorns, right? And we want to go around and I want you to tell us one thing that you really enjoyed, easy to do, and one thing you wish was better. And I'm like, I needed you to tell me this before so I could like pick out a thing. Because most of the time I finish one of those games and my brain is like, I just wish everything was a little bit better. I wish the characters were a little bit more interesting. I wish the role play was a little bit better. I wish the story had been a little bit more integrated and better. Like, I need to know what is going to be expected of me after, because I am going to contribute, but I want to be a positive contributor while also not like.
And it's also like, if you're gonna look somebody in the face and be like, hey, tell me what I did wrong, you can't spring that on them, because you need a way to like say that diplomatically. Like, if I got out of a game and they're like, all right, now tell me everything I did wrong, it's like, well then, first, I don't like your face. 2, I don't like the sound of your voice. And 3, I don't like the words that you put in the sound of, like, you can't just like
Yeah.
like dumpster somebody like that. Like, you have to you have to give somebody like the presence of mind to like make it more diplomatic. And to be clear, and I've gotten into arguments with people about this in the past. They've said, well, whatever you have to say is like your honest, true thing. And I'm like, no. How many times have you written something and the first draft of it was bad? The subsequent drafts aren't lies. They aren't falsehoods. Instead, it is a purification of what it is that you're trying to convey. Because if you're going to say somebody, like if you're going to say something hurtful to somebody, or if you're going to say something that you don't want to be hurtful, that can come out hurtful, taking a step and like switching it around isn't lying to them. It's getting to your truer intent. And
especially true if you don't know the people well.
right.
Like, I can go, David, I know you wrote that stat block. I don't like
It's
it.
trash. Throw it away.
Not very good. Can you fix it? Like, David and I can have that conversation. I can go to Candace and be like, Candace, I love this character. Can you tone this one thing down just a little bit? It's just rubbing me the wrong way, right? I wouldn't, because Candace is perfect, right? But if I don't know someone, and again, this is anxiety brain and being femme in this world and specifically in this space, if I don't know someone and I give even the gentlest of criticisms, ooh, it can come back on me real bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just telling a rando on the street who just walked up to me and said, "Will you marry me?" I said no and walked away, and then he screamed obscenities at me the whole
That was
way
in
down
Hollywood,
the block. Yeah, it was in Hollywood.
That sounds about right.
It was at the Starbucks at Hollywood and La Brea. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a friend of mine refers to that as Mos Eisley. Yeah. Ooh, anyway, but yeah, like setting expectations is really important, because I've had games where I was playing in a new system and somebody slid me like a 200-page PDF, and they're like, hey, you're gonna need to learn this before we play. And I've gone, I know some of these words. I ain't playing this fucking game. And you out your goddamn mind, you think I'm gonna read 200 pages to spend 2 hours with you? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But
Even
there have been
I got a 30-page quick start for a one shot, and I'm like, 30 pages is a bit much for a one shot. For a campaign, different.
And I've had games where somebody's like, listen, it's a new system, character creation is a thing. I don't expect you to know a goddamn thing when you show up. You get up here and I'm explaining, I'm gonna walk you through it. I'm like, great. And there are other games where they're like, hey, character creation is gonna be 3.5 hours to play in this game. And I'm like, sweet, let's do it, because I want to play this game with this person. But make sure that there are as few surprises as possible, and that the only surprises that happened are storytelling surprises.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's really important as a GM to make sure that, again, it's all coming back to communication. But hey, I'm a comms person, so bite me. Communicating both like kind of the tone and expectation for the game, as well as like what the players want for their characters. Because I just had a conversation with someone who was like, I want to run this game. And I'm like, okay, we can figure out casting for it. You know, I think we should look at like this group of people, because this sounds like really improv and humor heavy, and you're going to want people who are really, really good at that. And they were like, oh, actually, like, yes, that's going to be part of it. And but this is actually going to be kind of a dark and brutal thing. And part of it is this weird slapstick offset with that. And I'm like, okay, actually, that's a very different tone than how I initially read it. So yes, we should look at different casting for that. We need someone who could do that well. So again, even before, there's no players at this table yet. It's just, how do we find the players for this table? That's really important. And then likewise, you know, we're going to go back to my infamous too long character background story. I've written
They've never
a
been
lot.
Not once.
I've written a lot of character background. 2 characters I have submitted to games recently, neither of which you can watch yet, sorry y'all, have been less than a page of character backstory. And I've like come to the GMs and been like, I apologize, right? Here's the hooks, right? Like, usually most of my character backstory hooks come from this very thing, but I'm like, this character seems like they've got it all together. But actually, they're weak in X, Y, and Z, and this is how you can pull it in. They're trying to get here, but I actually want them to be derailed. Like this other character, I'm like, they have kind of done, they have a history of this, and they're trying to change their life. I don't know where that's going to go, right? I leave that up to you, the GM, and I will flow with any of these things. Here's like 3 different outcomes I could see. And again, as a player, I am delighted when a GM asks that. I have had a GM who said, like, I don't read character backstories. And like, that's fine, but it's not as good as storytelling
That's
because the
fine for
GM
you, but
isn't
I'm going somewhere else to play.
right. Um, is it character background though? But yeah, so making sure everyone kind of knows what's up. And then we did Candace and some of the folks who have played in Godplane can speak to this. Like David and I will go like, hey, we see this. Are you okay with blank? We had a player bring in a character with skills that only existed in 3.5. This is a character thing that had not been ported to 5e. Even so, the thing that they wanted to use it for wouldn't work nicely within the game that we were playing. And I had a talk with the player and I'm like, hey, so here's the thing. I want you to have this power. It's not, for reasons I can't tell you, it's not going to work nicely in this setting. I have an idea of how to use it to make it really, really cool. It will not be what is on your paper. You can, in character, you can say your character expects this to happen. It won't. This other thing will happen. Are you cool with trusting me with that? And then after it happens in game and after you see what happens, if you are not satisfied with it, we can reconvene and make that power a thing that you want, right? Every time I have brought something like that to a player where I'm like, hey, I want to mess with this, or hey, are you cool if this goes a little bit different? So long as I give them a heads up, every player's like, yeah, surprise me. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah, I'm here for it. Now, had I just said like, oh yeah, that cool power you had, it doesn't work. Instead, this thing happens.
Yeah,
That would feel
that
different.
be rude as shit.
So we are reaching the end of our time today. Chat, you have been awesome. We have not read off as much chat today, but that's largely because David had some rants that were not going to be interrupted, even though we could have interrupted the deodorant one much sooner.
Yeah, some of us went too deep.
If you have final questions or final comments that you would like to make, I can verb. Wow. Now is the time. Y'all, I have been standing at this desk on a call since 3:00. So my brain cells are overheating and your friend's about to go sit on a couch and play mental health resource Stardew Valley. But if you have final thoughts, now is the freaking time.
People claim that mental health care in the United States is very expensive, but Stardew is only 20.
I think it's 10 now.
Possibly.
Like,
I
yeah. Don't run from your problems in Stardew Valley, but also use your don't trauma dump on your D&D party, right? Don't work out all of your therapy issues with your D&D party, but also that magical space where you have therapy and you're playing a TTRPG. That is growth, y'all. That is the best. But yes. So again, I feel like the majority of our 44 rules here at Chaotic Wholesome Presents is communicate. Communicate this, communicate that, communicate this. Yeah, do bring dice. Or if you don't bring dice, download it or just open a Chrome tab on your phone and use the digital dice roller.
So
Oh gods. Oh gods,
I've
what
been
did I do?
I've been thinking about dice. I've been laying in bed late at night, and by late at night I mean the sun is out, about dice. And two things. One, I've had uh and it wasn't a game I was jamming, but I've had another player show up, didn't have their character sheet, didn't have a pencil, didn't have scrap paper, didn't have dice. And you know what happened? I had a copy of their character sheet because I had a copy of everyone's character sheet. And so I whipped out one of the copies of the character sheets and handed it to them. And then somebody else had a pencil for them. And then the GM got this funny grin on his face, and then pulled out one of them Velvet Crown Royal bags and packed. There were dice jumping out of that motherfucker. It was packed so tight, and then dumped dice on the table and was like, "Choose your weapon." And I think about like the dice gremlins in my life, and I want to build a system or build like an add-on to a system where there's a particular game where you can't roll the same dice twice. So that every time you roll, it has to be a different die than the one you used before. Like there is a like you have your unused, and then you have like your dice graveyard, and you grab it, you roll it, and that way, all of my dice gremlin people have an excuse to finally use all of the dice that they have acquired.
But I can't use the dice if it doesn't match the character.
I'm gonna have to figure out a way around that.
But yes, communicate. Don't be a dick. Be a decent person. Take a shower. And I did say, now look, I want to be very clear. I did say, like, my anxiety, like roses and thorns with people I don't know well, does stress me out, right? But it's not the roses part of it that stresses me out. I can find something nice to say about just about anyone, right? That's not the problem. It's the
I can't do it.
Go out of your way to say something nice to your GM or to a fellow player, right? Like, hey, GM, I really had fun. David knows I will finish a game. We will have had great viewership. Chat will have been active. People will be active in chat. We will hang out after, and people will be like, I'm so sorry, I have to go. I want to keep talking about it, but I have to go. Everyone will hang up, and I'll be like, this was great. I'll go and like have a drink and wind down, and an hour later, I'm like, that game was terrible. I did everything wrong. Everyone's mad at me. No one's had fun. That was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Like, tell your GM they did something that, and even call out something specific. Hey, that stat block completely threw me. Hey, I've never fought a battle that complex. Hey, you dug deep and you found something in my character backstory that I did not. Tell your GM, tell your fellow players. In the trophy dart game that I was playing, we ended a session and the GM was like, my favorite thing that you did was you had a throwaway line where you said, I wish Teeth was here. And everyone else in this party knew that Teeth was a bullshitter and was a problem. But it just showed, even though this person hasn't been in this game for 2 sessions, your character bought into that 100% and you carried it through, right? That told me so much about your character right there. And I'm like, I did so many other things, but that little throwaway line is what you remembered. And it brought me joy. They easily could have pointed to the biggest thing that I did, but they said, no, I noticed this little thing. And I appreciate that. And I was like, oh, Jason says, if I can say something nice about both of you today, I've had such a nice time watching and lurking. I appreciate all your advice. Your priceless wealth of information in this space. You all are so kind. I need to process interactions first before I know whether I'm bothered by a thing or not. Massive delay. Totally fair, right? And again, I've sat there and been like, if you give me time, I can probably find the thing that you want. But like, really, I just wish everything was a little better. And I have to sit here and like go through what's a specific thing that I can say, if you did this, it would be better, as opposed to just like, everyone was fine. It's a B minus. It's fine. Really tough. I like that.
You've all
yes.
failed. Never attempt this again. But
Tell other people what they did that you appreciated. It really matters. Especially if the dice has gone against them that game.
we, as human beings, find it easier to say the mean thing than the nice thing. But also remember that words are free, whether they be mean or nice. So use your free words. Be mindful in the way that you use your free words. Because some people are a dick and you got to tell them. But otherwise,
yeah,
like
this GM who wrote the 44 rules, like, dude, I feel you. You're frustrated. You're being a dick. Goodbye. I'm not hanging at this table, right?
But your life is hopefully filled with a ton of great people. So take the time to tell them that, because I guarantee you there are good people in your life that where you're like, that's a good person. That they haven't heard that from you in a while. So do that.
And again, and I will end on this unless David has another thing. We should have ended on David's wonderful line, but there is nothing more validating and exciting to me as a GM or as a player than when someone comes up and says, I really like that thing that you did, or that plot hook, or that NPC that you whatever. Can we do something with that, right? Can I have a character connection? Can I incorporate that? When someone is like, you did a thing and I want to be part of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're best friends. We think alike. We like similar things. How can I make this cooler for the both of us? So don't be afraid to tell someone, I like this thing you did. How can I be part of it? It is better to do that than to go, oh, I really like that thing that they did, and then show up the next session and copy it without talking to them. Which I've seen happen. And it's awkward.
It's also awkward when people go out on the internet and steal your ideas and like look you in the eye like they have it. But that's a whole different conversation.
It's a whole different conversation. But I think that is going to wrap us up for here. As always, if you're like, oh, I thought of a story I need to share, I've got a rule that needs to be done, hit us up in Discord. Hop into the VOD. We'll hopefully be up. We'll be up by the end of the week, I have no doubt. Hop into the VOD and let us know. Tweet at us. We are here. We want to hear your stories. We want to share them. And as always, if you have an idea for something we need to cover, please let us know. Let's see. Oh gods, I am on the wrong calendar, which is going to make this tricky. Next week, we will be here, right back here, with Candace the Magnificent, who is going to tell us about Cataclysm Presents Magnificent Pride and the awesome 4 plus a secret games that we're going to be running come June. Find us here on Thursday. No, not on Thursday. On Thursday, we will not be playing Baldur's Gate. I will be doing the final episode of the Grand Labyrinth Heist. Find us Friday playing Baldur's Gate. And then we will be back here Tuesday with Candace for the talk show. And then Magnificent Pride begins on the 6th with the first table, which is D&D 5e. It's going to be run by Eugenio with myself, Candace the Magnificent, DM Jazzy Hands is Eugenio, Improv and RPG, Chrissy in Color, and Urban Bohemian. And I am so excited to see what Eugenio is putting us through. It's going to be a great time. On Wednesdays during June, we will be here playing Baldur's Gate on Wednesdays, since I can't stream on Friday and Thursday is going to be Magnificent Pride. However, we will be missing one Wednesday, but something else even cooler will be happening here. So keep your eyes and ears out. If you're not in the Discord, come join us. If you're not following us on Twitter, follow us. We're going to be sharing this stuff soon. I can't wait. Thank you all for hanging out, for being such a great community, and for always being just so amazing and so insightful and sharing. David, who the heck is you, and what the heck has we been doing here?
Hi, I am a proud advocate of deodorant. But this is what we've been doing is the Chaotic Wholesome presents Tuesday Talk Table Show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, how to shower regularly, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
And thank you again, chat, as always, for being awesome. Thank you, Domo Jason, for the incredible graphic assets that are announcing Chaotic Pride. Thank you, Chaotic Pride, Magnificent Pride. Thank you, Candace, for all your work on Magnificent Pride. Thank you, Ilaria Stormforge, for the resub. And thank you, Oblivion's Price, France, for the follow. And with that, who are we rating, David?
Pirate.
Excellent. We're going to go over and see Painting Pirate, who is chatting right now, but he will be playing Final Fantasy VII. So there will be a spoiler alert, which he will put up very large on the screen before it begins. So thank you all. Be kind to yourself, be excellent to others, and we will see you next time.